Hi, folks. So we're back taking a look at the Constitution Act of 1867. Again, as I ended up the last video, four key themes to look at when you're reading through the Constitution Act. It largely continues an existing order of government. It's continuing the traditional colonial system of government that the British had founded here. But it's seeking to create a second point, seeking to create a flexible constitution regarding those powers. Within this, it's establishing, as a third point, a federal system of government, and then seeking to establish a very strong central federal government in the new Federation of Canada. One thing, the fact that the Fathers of Confederation are in many cases continuing powers, it means much of the Constitution is very cursory. Much of the document is very cursory, with very limited discussion of these powers that the Fathers of Confederation are talking about. And this leads to some glaring omissions to note as we go through this. So now, again, as I go through this, the sections I mention are the only ones you need to be concerned about and be looking at, and that's going to be a minority of everything that is in here. So you get the Union, Section 3, and appreciate that in 1867, Canada consisted of Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. The other provinces it came in later, as I'll mention in a future couple of weeks. Section 9, in whom is executive authority in Canada vested? Well, Section 9, look at it. The executive government and authority of and over Canada is hereby declared to continue. Executive power isn't new, it's continuing, and be vested in the Queen. So by virtue of Section 9, Canada is a monarchy, and the Queen has full executive government and authority over Canada. That's written into the Constitution Act of 1867. And again, this is still valid constitutional law today. Section 10 recognizes the existence of the Governor General. So Canada will have a Governor General, and it is a pre-existing position. And back then, the Governor General was always a British official. Up until 1952, the first Canadian Governor General wasn't appointed until 1952. That's even after Indian independence, for some of you folks to note. Section 11 establishes a Privy Council. There shall be a council to aid and advise in the government of Canada, to be styled the Queen's Privy Council for Canada. And a few more mention of that. The Privy Council, for all intents and effect, the Privy Council is the cabinet. And remember the first principle of responsible government, that executive action is only to be authorized on consent of a council, consent of a cabinet, selected from the ranks of Parliament, with that council having command, that cabinet having command of a majority of the members of Parliament. Section 12, a big long section. I won't read it, but you take a look at it. Section 12. Section 12 deals with the powers of the Governor General. And basically, you read that big long paragraph and you see that a Governor General will possess all the powers held by previous Governors General. So there's a continuation of power here. And that the Governor General has full authority to act as an executive in lieu of the Queen. So the fact that the Queen is not present in Canada, the Governor General will have full executive authority over Canada. And again, the governor, what are the powers of the governor general? Well, the powers will be the powers held by all previous governors general. And the Fathers of Confederation are just assuming that you know, that all Canadians know what previous governors general's powers were. Section 13 is really important. It's one sentence. The provisions of this act referring to the Governor General and Council shall be construed as referring to the Governor General acting by and with the advice of the Queen's Privy Council for Canada. Read that again. Section 13 carries over responsible government into the Canadian Constitution. Again, go back to the key principles of responsible government that we looked at last week. The executive, the Privy Council, the cabinet, must be composed of persons who are elected legislatures who command with that party, the cabinet coming from the party that commands the confidence of the majority of the members of parliament. So the cabinet comes from the party that commands the majority in parliament, and the leader of that party becomes prime minister. And the second element of responsible government, all unelected officials, including a governor general or a lieutenant governor in the province, must undertake their duties on the advice, understand orders, on the advice/orders of the Executive Council, the Privy Council, the Cabinet. So by virtue of Section 13, Canada is a democratic monarchy. And again, all the principles and practices of responsible government are carried over into the Canadian Constitution by virtue of one sentence. And here, the Constitution never stipulates exactly what is the meaning of responsible government. The words responsible government don't even come in. It's just understood. It's understood that the Governor General acting on the advice of the Executive Council is to be understood. Also, note the irony here, note an omission here. In talking about the executive power in Canada, the position of the Prime Minister is never mentioned. John A. Macdonald and the Fathers of Confederation fully knew that Canada would have a Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister would be the key figure in Canada, but it's not mentioned. They think they don't need to mention that. It's understood. People will understand that. Of course, there'll be in a British parliamentary system, there's a prime minister who will be in charge of the cabinet and who will be the key with a majority government or even a minority. The prime minister will be the key advisor to the governor general or the premier in a province advising the lieutenant governor. No need to explain all of that in detail. It will be understood. Anyone who knows how the British parliamentary system works will understand that. So we'll see omissions like this all the way along. The assumption is that Canadians understand how the system works. We don't need to be told that in the Constitution. Whether that assumption is still valid, was ever valid and is still valid today, well, we'll talk about that in another week or two. I'll come back and we'll be back into looking at the legislature next